When it comes to African American achievements, the Tuskegee Airmen are certainly unforgettable. The Tuskegee Airmen were the first African American aviators in United States military history. While African Americans were allowed to join the segregated United States military, only white people could fly. Due to racist propaganda being thrown around, it was believed that black people were not smart enough to learn how to fly or were really capable of doing well in combat. NAACP, or National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, began to pressure the military for more opportunities for African Americans to serve in the armed forces. As World War II approached, President Roosevelt decided in September of 1940 that the United States Army Air Corps was going to begin teaching African Americans how to fly planes. The Department of War decided to train the men in Tuskegee, Alabama. They chose the site because they wanted to be near the Tuskegee Institute, an institution founded by Booker T. Washington for African Americans. There, 1,000 pilots were trained. Another 14,000 people were taught how to be navigators, bombardiers, mechanics, and many other types of support and maintenance crew. One avid supporter of the pilots was First Lady Eleanor Roosevelt. Mrs. Roosevelt helped bring more attention and publicity to the pilots after visiting the field and taking an aerial tour of the training grounds in 1941. After the Allies secured North Africa in World War II, the Tuskegee Airmen were deployed. The 99th Pursuit Squadron flew to North Africa and then to Italy. The Department of War, however, was not pleased with their work. The Tuskegee Airmen had to fly P-40s. Their planes were not as good as the Germans. The P-40s were slower and much harder to maneuver. Commanding Officer Benjamin O. Davis, Jr., the man who oversaw the 99th Squadron, was able to defend his men and convince the department to send his men back to Italy. Once there, they fought alongside the 79th Fighter Group, a group made of white people. Eager to prove themselves, the 99th Squadron managed to take down 12 German fighters in the span of 2 days, an incredible feat. In February of 1944, Tuskegee sent more men over to Italy. The 100th, 301st, and 302nd Fighter Squads flew from Alabama to Italy. There, they combined with the 99th Squadron to form the 332nd Fighter Group. The new fighter group was also given new, better planes. Their planes were called P-51 Mustangs. These planes were much higher quality and were used to escort heavy bombers from the 15th Air Force. The planes' tails were given the distinct red color, which gave them the name Red Tails. A common myth you might have heard of is that the Tuskegee Airmen never lost a single bomber. Unfortunately, this is not true. While the myth did fool many people both during and after the war, it has been discovered through analysis that they actually lost about 25 bombers. While it is unfortunate that 25 bombers were lost, keep in mind that all other escorts for the 15th Air Force lost about 46 bombers. The last mission flown was on April 26, 1945, roughly 2 weeks before German surrender. In the 2 years they fought for our country, the Tuskegee Airmen had flown over 15,000 missions, damaged 36 German planes in air, 237 planes in ground, 1,000 trained and transport vehicles, and 1 German destroyer. Unfortunately, even after risking their lives to fight for our country, they still had to put up with the racism and bigotry and prejudice when they returned home. They did, however, play a large part in racial equality and the process of desegregation. For example, they helped pave the way for President Truman's decision to desegregate the military. Several of the original Tuskegee Airmen would continue to serve for the military. General Davis would also become the first African American general. General James Jr. would become the first African American four-star general. And finally, Colonel Roberts would become the first African American general to serve in the desegregated Air Force. About 300 of the original airmen were given the Congressional Medal of Gold in 2007 from President George Bush.